So I'm writing a piece this week on the history of the Baylor-Texas rivalry, which has been it's been lopsided. I mean, the Longhorns have owned it, but I kind of looking at. So I originally said top 10. I've actually expanded it to 13 games, just because 113 meetings, made sense. Um, so again, Kirk said you guys have been on this beat a while. So have I. Zach's a little newer to it. What are just some of y'all's best memories of, when the Longhorns and Bears get together, whether it's, a specific game or just coach or player, whatever?
I'll go first, Kirk. I've got three. My favorite memory. I love when the kids run out for the game.
Baylor line, yeah.
Yeah, like a bunch of little Ralphie the Buffaloes running down that field, and they're sprinting. And you know, in recent years, it's that group's gotten a little older. I see some old OGs in the back of the bus trying to keep up. But I love that kind of pageantry about college football, and Texas has started to do that, but it ain't on the par what Baylor does. I really think that's my lasting memory, one of them. My first memory, and I didn't start watching college football. I was out playing a lot. We would watch Earl Campbell whenever Texas was on TV because he's from my hometown.
Mm-hmm.
But my first memory of Baylor football was watching in like 1980 or 1981, and Mike Singletary was just a monster. I was like, that guy's not even 5'11", and he was averaging like 15 tackles a game. And I remember I was watching during the 1980 season, and this is before Texas hit their little stride in the early 80s. They shut out Baylor shut Texas out 16-0, and Singletary was all over the field, and Texas went another 24 years without getting shut out after that. And that Baylor team went to the Cotton Bowl, and Alabama killed them.
Mm-hmm.
But I just remember tuning into the Cotton Bowl because I wanted to watch Mike Singletary, and he's still one of my favorite players. And I got to interview him when I was in Tyler. He was in for an event, a charity event, and I still have the photo of me interviewing Mike Singletary.
Nice.
My other one, there was an absolute war. I think it's 2011. RG3 v. Case McCoy, not Colt. Case McCoy. And those guys put on a show. Case threw for 356 yards. He did throw 4 picks. And RG3 was just electric. He was only 15 of 22, but he had a couple of touchdowns passing and a couple of touchdowns rushing. And Baylor just ran away at the end and won like 48-24. And I just remember how electric Floyd Casey Stadium was that day. Oh, and one more, 62-0 in 05. Just steamrolled them. Ramon Taylor comes back to his home area and scores like 3 or 4 touchdowns, gets called for unsportsmanlike, which was very Ramon's-like back then. And walked out of there. People walked out of there going, man, Texas really is going to play USC. I mean, that's inevitable now, because they were just steamrolling the competition in the Big 12. So those are my memories of Baylor.
I think that 62-0, our headline was hit by a Mack truck.
Oh, man.
Mack brought a pretty good team in here and ran all over Baylor. Kirk, what's your thoughts?
Do you want me to go over all 113 games, or do we have time for that? Probably not.
About 50.
Cedric would die on the spot. Oh, I'll go with 3 too. Probably my biggest memory was the 1963 game, because I was there as a 13-year-old Boy Scout that our Boy Scout troop used to go, and we would usher people to their seats.
Nice.
During the first quarter. And then after that, we're free to go wherever we want, wherever we can find a seat. So, and Baylor fans will remember that 63 team special, Don Trolla, Lawrence Elkins. I mean, that All-American tandem. I mean, they were it. They were the bomb. And I just remember the build-up for that game. And it was just – and Texas had a 7-0 lead late in the game. I don't know if if you remember Brice or Zach or said, but it's like Duke Carlisle, their quarterback, was put in at safety that last drive, ends up intercepting a non-trill pass to Lawrence Elkins in the back of the end
that's
zone.
One of the games that I've got in this story. And I tell you, it's been fun going back and reading the accounts of like Dave Campbell and Kern Tips and, just different people that covered a lot of those games.
I mean, did you hear? You missed
people that did never
see.
Did I miss what?
A little line in there. Kurt goes, Brice, Zach said, I don't know if you remember.
We're not old enough to remember that. Come on.
None of us were born, Kurt. We weren't born yet.
You weren't born during World War I, but you've heard of it, right? I mean, come on.
Yeah, but I don't remember it. You remember? I remember my first date. I remember when I learned how to drive a stick shift. I don't remember places that I wasn't at.
What else, Kirk? What else?
All right. Well, the other two I remember is Baylor in '74. You remember first winning the conference in 50 years?
Mm-hmm. And Miracle on the Brazos. Yeah.
Miracle on the Brazos left the scoreboard lights on all night and said,
"That's cool. That's cool."
That was cool. Neil Jeffries, the quarterback, he had a couple of touchdowns, real slippery quarterback, ran and threw. I think Alcee Jackson was the star of that game too. So, that was terrific. And then the other one was the '74 Worm game.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes.
I know you know, Brice. Zach said, do y'all know about the Worm game?
No. And
fill me in.
Please fill us in, though.
That was one of the most famous games in the history of the rivalry. Is 1978. Baylor was 2-8. Not having the best of seasons, and Texas came in there on a high. It was Fred Akers' a second year there, and so Grant Taft, master motivator, told the story to his team in the pregame in the locker room, and he talked about these two Eskimos that went fishing every day at this frozen lake, and what they would use the same poles, the same bait, the same hooks. One would catch all the fish in the world, the other one would never get a bite. So the unlucky fisherman asked the others, well, what's your secret? And the lucky fisherman who was catching all the fish, Mama, you got to keep your worms warm. And he had the worms in his mouth. And so Grant had gotten a worm. I don't know how many worms he got. I think one.
I think it was one. I
thought one died during the week, or I can't remember. But so anyway, he said, and we're going to do whatever it takes to land the fish and to beat the Longhorns. And he pops the 5-inch worm in his mouth, and I think the place went crazy. They just knocked the doors off the locker room and beat them. It was like 38-10 or 38-14. Knocked Texas out of the Cotton Bowl.
That's coaching.
Grant, Taft still of any Baylor coach, he still has beaten Texas more than anybody else. Like, they were competitive all those years against the Longhorns, and he was a master motivator. It's still good to see him. We had a luncheon recently where they were honoring Walter Abercrombie. Walter, of course, been around here in Waco forever, but I saw Coach Taft at that. So keep the worms warm. That was a great one.
Yeah, Grant always called me that blonde-haired assassin.
Nice. Yeah. He didn't call you Poison Pen.
They did that a little bit too. I'm sure y'all got that a little bit. So anyway, those are probably my three best memories, I guess.
Those are some good ones. Good ones.
Zach, is your best memory the Long Island game? I mean, you just got here. So.
I mean, I can tell you about stuff that I'm reading of, like 1910. I know none of us were around for that, right?
Oh, so 1910 is on my list too. And we'll just give the podcast listeners a bit of history. That one was 7-7, or was it 6-6?
6-6.
6-6.
I remember.
Yeah, and the officiating, apparently Baylor did not like it, and it got a little crazy, and they were disputing some of the calls, and finally the coach, Ralph Glaze, I believe, said, "We're done. We're not playing anymore," and they just left. And So it went down as a 1-0 forfeit for the Longhorns.
Oh my! Probably the only 1-0 in the history of the rivalry, right?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Lowest scoring for
So-
sure. You know?
Yeah.
They recovered that day. They covered.
I remember covering that. I filed my story on Pony Express.
Pigeon.
So guys,